Hey guys, welcome. So I have today a conversation with Erica Litzner. She's been on the podcast before, but a long time ago. And Erica is in our online community, as a vibrant part of our online community, the Oh Crap Cafe. And she is a dear friend, and she and I hash out a lot of details. And today we really want to talk about, after my podcast with Tori Winstead, I'm really going to hit the snack culture hard and food. And we have to revisit picky eating, standard picky eating from intense picky eating or severe picky eating, and the massive forces against us as parents. So welcome, Erica.
Thank you.
Hey, it just started to snow.
Oh,
I know, it's snowing at my house. It's going to be like this glorious, but I'm excited. I just looked out the window. I was like, oh my God. All right, let's jump in. So how old is your daughter?
6. She'll be 7 in a couple months.
How is she 7?
I don't know.
That's crazy.
No
Kids just stay in your head little. It's so funny. Yeah?
Yeah. And I find myself saying when she was little, I'm like, she's still little, but yeah.
It's
I've
hard.
been listening to you since she was 1, so I'm like, it's whole lifetimes. Many lifetimes have gone by.
It's so hard with kids because they start getting skills, and I think we mentally put them older, because they are still little. 7 is still little.
Yeah, and she's very precocious. So somebody was asking me recently if she has meltdowns. I'm like, no, that's the worst part. She has very logical responses.
No, she internalizes it and spits it back.
Totally.
That's how I say. With Pascal, I've always said Pascal is better than any therapist I ever hired. Because he would call me out on things. My famous example is I am quiet when I get pissed off, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought I was just being quiet because I didn't want to say hurtful words. I did not realize I was sucking the oxygen out of the 50-mile radius. And he was 4 years old, and he said, "Mom, you're scaring me." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "You're what did he say? Your quiet is loud. Your quiet is too loud." And I was like, "My quiet is too loud." And I was like, "Oh, I'm being passive aggressive. I'm not just being quiet. I'm letting you know I'm being quiet." And so I was like, damn, 25 years of therapy. And this kid nails it. The precocious ones they're funny. Give us your background, because you have a great food background.
Yeah. I grew up with a grandma who had me in the kitchen all the time. And in hindsight, I'm just like, wow, the layers of gifts that gave me in Northern Michigan. And then I started working in restaurants when I was 14, got into college and decided to just do that. So I have a bachelor's degree in food service management with minors in nutrition and sociology. And the sociology bit came later. I got into college and muscled through the food service and the nutrition. And then I got into sociology, and I was like, oh my goodness, I just got a degree, or I'm almost about to achieve a degree in something that's destroying the planet and harming workers. At that time.
Oh, the food service.
Yeah,
part.
yeah,
Okay.
Totally. Yeah.
I was like, how's nutrition?
Of any kind of restaurants,
confused for a sec.
institutions
Sure.
that I was driving climate destruction. I was driving worker rights violations, and a childhood obesity epidemic. And so I got done with college and fled to France and learned farmers market eating. I wasn't there for school. I was just there to live. I cleaned a bed and breakfast 5 days a week.
Nice.
But then I just, went to the boulangerie, went to the farmers market, ate with my neighbors for 7 months. And when my visa was up and I had to come back to the US, I decided to move to Portland specifically to have easy access to foods that I could get behind nutritionally and sociologically. And it's a great restaurant city. So I have worked in restaurants most of the 18 years I've lived here, until recently I started cooking at a Montessori preschool. And so that's what I do for work now, as well as still working in restaurants. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. France, I mean, I don't know. The French are so stuffy. So when I spent time in France doing circus work, and they I speak French, but like not menu French. You know what I mean? Like I can hold a conversation, but not like I can't do philosophy or anything like that.
Right.
But man, they got the food nailed down. And I have my bitches about the French because they could be so stuffy. And like you try to speak French and they judge you, and then you don't try to speak French and they judge you. And so I had more fun in like Brussels and Berlin, but the food part they have nailed down. And so my first introduction to bone marrow, so I was on a date. I would date, and I'm an adventuresome eater, so I would just order anything off the menu, not knowing. I couldn't really translate it, you know. And so I ordered Nosa Samuel, and my first hint was my date looked at me and goes, "You like that? Not a lot of people like that." And I was like, oh, shit, what I order? And I was like, all right, you got to suck it up. If it's monkey brains, it's monkey brains, right? And so they brought me these 2 huge marrow bones with a gold spoon, and they had scooped out the marrow and done it, and garlic, and and I was like, how did I not know that bone marrow was so delicious? And so I started at that point, when I came back to the States, I was going to farmers markets and I was asking the farmers for the bones. And at that point it was free. Nobody had heard of bone broth, collagen. Nobody cared. You know, they were like, you want the bones? Here, take it, you know? And so
now they're wicked expensive.
I know, but the French really do have it. One of the things that always intrigued me is that they have very tiny fridges. Anywhere I went, they had like almost what looked like a mini fridge.
Yeah.
And their bodegas, they're like little corner stores, have all the fresh cheese, all the fresh baked bread. It's not like 7-Eleven. It's not convenience. It's just their little mini markets.
Yeah, I mean, it is convenient, but it's not what we call convenience foods.
Convenience
here
foods,
in the US.
right?
Yeah.
And they buy 2 days worth of food. Like there's no cost.
Yeah.
They laugh at us with Costco and stockpiling. And yeah, I thought that was so intriguing to like live with no stocked cupboards. And I don't know, I think Americans just have an inborn food insecurity. I feel like everybody just is like, I need more.
It is, yes, there's that. And then there's also the, well, I just don't have time. I don't have time to go to the store every couple days. And like, I'm somewhere in the middle. Like I have a somewhat stocked home. But I go to the farmer's market every Saturday. I usually have to stop at the grocery store a time or two during the week. You know, what I learned about food from the French will be with me for the whole rest of my life. In large part because when I'm like growing up in northern Michigan, like in the woods in the 80s and 90s, I mean, with all of my things, I was a pathologically picky eater. And I was so like, oh my gosh, there's going to be mayo on stuff. And I don't speak very good French. And I don't like all these things. And a voice in my head literally said, Erica, we're going to go to France and we're going to eat whatever the fuck they send me. And that's
nice.
It. And that's it. And you're just going to do it. And I did. I went and I was, oh gosh, I cringed at everything. And then I ate it and I was like, oh, you know, I know you can't eat nightshades, but bell peppers, like, oh my gosh, why do strawberries taste so good?
Yeah.
Blue cheese is delicious.
Blue cheese in France is next level. It's just next level.
And now I moved there and was like, I don't like ham. And then I tried, you know, ham in France. I was like, this isn't ham. This is some delicious thing. And they're like, it definitely is ham. Whatever it is that you're eating in the US is not ham.
Well, listen, this is really interesting to me because number one, obviously the food difference, right? Like ham you get at the deli counter is going to be wildly different than the ham you might get in France. But also I have literally been seeing this in the last, I'd say month. I like to follow, whenever I hear about a client who has a diagnosis, any sort of neurodivergence, any sort of anything, I like to go find accounts of adults because I feel like the adults now have a platform to speak about what they needed as children, right? And so I think that's really interesting. And more people I've heard this so many times. I made myself travel and food became different. I had a different set of rules. Something in my brain broke through where I could try anything. And then it expanded when I got back to the States. But at home, I was very locked into this eating pattern. And I thought, oh, that's fascinating. What a great brain hack, whatever's involved there.
To me, it was shame. I was like, I do not want to be that person. I don't want to be an American who speaks very little French in France going, "Oh, can I get no mayo, please?" And now I dunk my French fries in mayo. I'm like, "Can I get a side of mayo?" Or we'll call it aioli here if you want to. It's not aioli. It's mayonnaise with flavors added in, guys, which is fine. Like whatever you want to call it to feel better about it. But I was completely different. I was obsessed with food still. I mean, all my friends in college, I was the dinner party friend, with my roommate. We'd have people over, but it was very basic foods. And I still eat basic foods. I just eat a lot more of them.
Yeah. And I think sometimes when we start talking about food, because guys, we're going to chime in with like the whole dinner. I've been doing a series on dinner and making dinner easier and plainer foods. And food can be, it can be plain food and still really delicious if you're using the best ingredients. So I think sometimes what I hear from a lot of people, I'm bored, I'm a foodie. Listen, I spent my formative years in San Francisco. Like I was the highest end foodie you could ever imagine. It was in the 90s. We had the .com bubble. We were all rich. It was crazy. I could have 3 houses if I saved the money from 1994. But I didn't. I spent it on
food.
To
dinner.
But if you use the best ingredients, like plain food is the best.
Yeah. And it's funny, the night before last, I made a plate that I thought with all of the things that you've been talking about on the show, I was like, this is the antithesis of that. I mean, the salad had like 5 components, the steak had this beautiful sauce on it, and it was purple cauliflower. It was just a lot of components. My husband says I'm a components eater. But last night I took out the turkey lunch meat bag, the sliced Colby Jack cheese bag, a box of crackers, and my pickle jar. I didn't have a plate. I just picked things like right out of the bag and ate it. And I feel good about it. It had live active cultures. It had plenty of fat and protein. It had, fermented vegetable, like feeling great. I didn't set it up. I didn't like put it on a board or whatever. I just ate the way that I had time to eat, and I didn't dither about it. I was like, oh, I've been doing things all day, productive other types of things. I'm going to eat a nutritious meal right now. And what it looks like is pulling things out of the deli bags and the cracker box and the pickle jar. And I think that, and I actually, one of the things I didn't mention is that I do have a little side biz of, I call myself a food doula. And it's when somebody has gotten some kind of diagnosis, and the treatment plan involves some kind of dietary component, and they don't know how to deal with their new life that they have to live now. And so that's like they're birthing themselves into a new food situation. And one of the friends that I helped has a history with anorexia, but they have ARFID basically. And I had to talk to them about their history with food, which of course started in childhood. And then we went to the grocery store, and I had to like hold their hand and buy high fat foods because they used to look for the low fat stuff.
Sure.
They felt a lot of anxiety around it. And then we went into their house, and that's when I started giving them permission. Like you give us parents permission to do stuff that you're like, you don't need my permission, but it seems like you do. So I'm going to give it to you. And I was like, you can eat out of the bag. You can buy individually packaged cheeses because they had all this like, oh, it's so much plastic. I was like, oh, my love, do your whatever it is that you need to do to heal your environmental pain, and eat the individual cheeses because it helps you eat, and you just need to eat.
Right.
And you're a drop in the bucket to like the fish industry or whatever, dropping nets in the ocean. Like your cheese packets are not the problem.
Right.
If it helps you eat, that's what you need to do. And I think a lot of parents need a lot of permission around food.
Yeah.
It's okay to just grab out of the deli bag. It's also
I think parents need permission to make it easier and but we're going to rail against prepackaged convenient snacks. Okay. That doesn't mean prepackaged, individually packaged Goldfish. Making it easier means a hard-boiled egg and a string cheese. So we've got 2 dichotomies. And because, guys, I've been, I send out emails and people have been giving me feedback. So this is like real world feedback. This isn't me talking in theory. There's 2 things going on. The people who think it needs a Food Network like recipe, 90 components to everything, each color of the rainbow represented every single meal, or I'm going to shoot for that and I'm not going to have time. So now you get a Lunchable. Like it's that dichotomy. And so there's a middle thing, which is like, boil some potatoes and grill a piece of chicken.
Yeah. I mean, this weekend I got braised chicken, braised pork. I chop up all my veggies because I love vegetables. And I loved everything you said about our nutrient depleted soil in your last episode. Like, truly, I think what people think they are getting when they eat grocery store vegetables, it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
And this isn't like a tinfoil hat thing. The USDA has been tracking nutrients since the 30s.
Oh yeah, no.
And so it is them saying we don't have the nutrients that we used to have.
Yeah.
Now, in Oregon, we do. We have 16 inches of topsoil, and my farmers do living soil and stuff. So I don't like buying the pre-cut veggies from the grocery store because I don't think they taste good, and I know they don't have the nutrients in them. So I get my pretty veggies, I chop them up ahead of time. That way I can like pull cauliflower, pull broccoli, and toss it on a pan. The number of people that I have said, all you got to do is toss it in olive oil, salt, and pepper, and roast it in the oven at 450. That's it.
Yeah.
When people talk about recipes for anything other than baking, they have lost me almost entirely.
Yeah.
I like books that can teach me about cooking. Like, I love Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. It's not a recipe book.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, pulling it together. I do have Kenji Lopez Alt's it's not serious. The Food Lab. That's another one that's like, here's some basics about braising meat. Here's some
I have the
about
Bible
putting
of braising. Yeah. And for anybody who has contacted me and said, I'm not good in the kitchen, this is what you need. Like, and this, by the way, my mom, I was in the kitchen with my mom and my grandmother, and I learned some things from them, but I didn't learn a wide variety of flavor palettes. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you make something Thai? How do you make something Italian, And so figuring out like the basics is the best thing. I was talking to somebody, I was coming home from Vegas and I was on the plane and I was talking to a woman about this and she was like, oh, get the Betty Crocker, the old Betty Crocker. I don't know if you remember, it had a blue circle, gingham, red gingham on it.
Got it. Yeah.
And it's just your basics and you just have to know how to braise, how to roast, how to do these things. Yeah. And roasting vegetables. So let's bounce back to that because our topsoil, we don't have what you have. And knowing like so vegetables now just rip up my stomach. They just do. Yeah. And I didn't know that. And my entire life, I have been known for my farts. I could move your body inches with a fart. Like that's how, and so giving up beans, nuts, and vegetables were like the best thing that happened to me.
Yes.
Now, what I struggle with a lot of client work is I think if we're looking at extreme picky eating and you're trying to get snacky snacks out of your kid's diet, why are you fighting over a string bean? Like there's nothing in it. And even your vegetables, which are wonderful and I'm sure taste good, I'm not going to fight over a fucking carrot stick.
No.
I'd rather fight over a hearty soup or a bite of meat that's going to give you so much more nutrients, I mean, so much more. Yeah.
Nutrition. No, watching my kids slide from the 50th percentile to the half percentile. I came to like in my bones understand you get a certain number of bites with these kids.
Yeah.
You get a limited number of bites in the mouth down the throat.
Right.
What are you going to fight over? And, every kid is different. My kid, I was like texting my sisters. I'm like, she's filling up on vegetables. You guys, she hasn't taken a bite of her meat, fat, or protein things. And she's just chewing raw vegetables. I think she likes the crunch.
Yeah.
She won't eat cooked vegetables at all. I make beautiful food. She eats almost none of it.
The irony.
Yeah, I know. And the kids at the school love. Yesterday, a 5-year-old came down the hallway and gave me a high five, like held his hand up high for a high five. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, that broccoli was delicious today. I love your broccoli. So like,
there you
cool.
go.
I love that. Yeah,
Mission accomplished, right?
I was like, cool, I'm going to do it again on Wednesday. And he was like, yes, double fist pump. I was like, thanks, friend. I love you.
Right on.
So some kids love it, some kids don't. So I'm going to feed it to the kids who love it. That's great, But anybody who doesn't, who gives a shit? I care about the things that have fat and protein going in my kid's mouth. And I don't give her protein shakes. Like I'm not trying to amp her up. But I do want her to have the calories that burn slower.
Yep.
And protein is only 4 grams per kilocalorie, but it does burn more slowly than fat does because it takes longer to turn into glucose.
Sure.
And so that's why I care about those things on her plate.
Yep.
And the vegetables matter to me because of the fiber, but it is not where my bread and butter is, right? My bread and butter is her eating fat and protein. And
Yeah.
if we're going to be doing the bite ratio thing, which I always swore with my bachelor's degree, I was like, I'm never going to be the bite ratio. I'm never going to be the bite bargaining parent. And here I am. I definitely am. It sucks. I hate it, but it is what it is. And the last thing I'm going to fight about is a vegetable. The very last thing.
And going back to France, I mean, we know they eat less because they want beautiful food. I mean, in general, I'm speaking in general terms, of course.
It's pretty widespread.
Yeah, is that like you're going to have less nutrition, but it's got to be delicious. Like, why are we fucking around with bad food?
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I said, and I know not everybody's in the community. So in a comment recently, I said that my kid goes to her grandparents a lot, and my mother-in-law was like, she doesn't eat vegetables here. And I said, it doesn't matter. It's fine. She eats plenty at home. And what I didn't say was, it's because your vegetables are gross. You get them from Costco.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not going to judge her. I'm not going to shame her. I'm not going to ever say these words to her because she helps me. She's my mother-in-law. I love her. She's been buying Costco vegetables since before I was born. So I definitely am not going to fight that fight. But that's why they don't taste good. And so there's parents out there feeding their kids steamed broccoli with butter on it. It sounds like hell to me. Like, that literally sounds like hell. I want a vegetable that's either raw or roasted. With oil and got the char, that like caramelized. Otherwise,
I would say for most kids that I deal with, like, I know Duff's different, but like the cooked is better. It's an easier texture, and roasting, you guys, if you don't roast your vegetables, it brings out all the sweetness, all the flavor with olive oil and salt. Like, that's great. And well,
and a lot of people are afraid of fat, which of course, but I just really like people to understand that the vast majority of whatever nutrients are still in your vegetables are fat soluble. So if you're eating them without fat, they're going to pass right through you, whatever was in your vegetables anyway. Yeah. So it's not just the flavor and texture, it's also the nutritional aspect. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's really just toss it in oil, salt, and pepper, and roast it at 450 for like 5-10 minutes, depending on how crunchy the veggie is, and dinner's on the table. And so parents trying to like find these complicated ways to prepare foods are missing an opportunity for ease and palatability.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive in. So again, this episode is airing this week, so it hasn't, as we're recording this, you haven't heard this episode. But Tori Winstead, I interviewed a mom. She's railing on Instagram against the snacking culture. And so she kind of just put it out there as a fluke. She was like, oh, I just decided to give up snacking. And the response was so visceral that she was like, oh no, I'm talking about this all day. So she gave up snacking for her kids, and it was the most powerful thing she's ever done. They became non-picky eaters. They eat with gusto at every meal. There is no fight during the day. There is less reward-seeking behavior. And so I've been doing a deep dive on dopamine, because dopamine is so misunderstood and it's so ubiquitous a term right now. And people are like, dopamine, and people think dopamine is the reward, and it's not. There's dopamine transmitters and a dopamine receiver, and it's about how fast that dopamine transmitter gets to the receiver. So that's it. It's that fast. And so we're looking for slow dopamine. And what we're doing right now is we're doing fast dopamine. So we're doing this like crazy, here's a screen, you're having a feeling, here's a snack. And so she noticed when she gave up snacking that everything chilled out. Their bickering chilled out, that they were just more chill kids. And like, she might grab an apple and throw it in her purse, which I'm like, yeah, like if your kid's hungry, we want them to eat. Like, I'm not saying we can't judge it, especially a toddler, because I feel like they eat like reptiles. Like, they'll eat a goat one day and then they'll spend like 3 days digesting it, right? They have eating days and non-eating days. And I think that freaks people out, because you think every kid's got to eat this amount every day, and they don't. So then they're not hungry. So then what happens? You have a Pop-Tart and you're like, here, eat this. And now it's like the easiest path down the hill. And so, we were talking about that, and I am enamored of this idea of like, this is what's driving society right now, is this like reward, this fast, instant, Amazon kids, right? Dr. Becky's calling them Amazon kids, and that everything is so fast. And so cooking food, like, let's talk about number one. Let's take it back a little bit, because you have some history in this as well as I do. How the snacking culture came about, because it's not what we're trying to say, you guys, is it's not your fault. These are massive, massive corporations that are throwing so much money at this to muck up the conversation and muck up you. So let's start with your professor, who, when the USDA came out with recommendations, which was 1980, you guys, it's not that long ago. Before 1980, we could eat what we wanted because the food supply wasn't corrupt. Mothers had intuition. The kitchen was the heart of the home, like this stuff. And so and if you look at any chart, chronic disease and obesity, 1980, shoom, it shoots up like a hockey stick.
Yeah. So I agree with like 99% of that. My grandmother loved me beyond measure, and all of us. She had 12 kids. She had 60 grandkids, a slew of great grandkids. She fed us. Everything started with a Campbell's tomato soup can. Everything that she fed us started with a convenience food that she altered a little bit in some way.
Yeah. Can I just interrupt you? We have a deer carcass in our chicken coop. It's fenced in. Their run is fenced in, and we have a poultry net so the hawks can't get them. And my freaking dog is trying to climb the poultry net to get to the deer carcass. Talking about food.
Yeah. Okay. Maverick's like, oh, I know what I'm gonna
I had to go get his electric collar and get him off the chicken net so he can't get to the carcass. Okay. I'm sorry. So your grandmother and convenience, she doctored up convenience.
The foods that she fed us were unhealthy, full stop. We loved, and the palatability was extreme. So everything that she made us was packed with sugar, packed with sodium, and not like she added salt to something, but like the convenience food that she started with had like industrial sodium in it. So my palate started because she was the one feeding me, and my dad that she raised was also feeding me, and he still eats an incredibly bland diet and takes 1,000 medications to deal with his various conditions.
But can I stop you? How old are you?
42.
42. So how old was your grandmother?
She was born in 22. So 22. She was, my dad was number 9. So my grandma was elderly by the time she was raising me. So my dad and mom split up when I was 2, and he moved back to Northern Michigan so that my grandma and grandpa could raise me while he worked and went back to school and stuff.
So did your grandmother always, because there wasn't like that, I guess what I'm trying to, I'm trying to parse 50s, out when the things, 50s, okay.
In the 50s, marketers said, hey, here's this box cake. Here's these cans of soup. And those existed before, but the marketing really went to I think of my grandma grew up with 8 siblings on a farm.
Okay.
Not all the siblings survived. Right. They all had these working things going on. So in the baby boom, people were still having, she had 12 live births, 2 miscarriages. This woman was going to go as far as she could with kids. Right. And they all, 12 of them survived, and they weren't on a farm. They were just in a house. And marketers you need an easier life. Your kids aren't working the land for you to help you with all this. You're just making all this food for all of these people all on your own. How about some Campbell's soup? How about some box mix? And you can do these little tweaks to make it homemade for your family. So you feel like you're still doing something, but it's convenient. Mm-hmm. And that's what she fed all of us. And I'm not even dogging her, because it was a ton of work, and she was so nice to me. She never yelled. I've talked to all my aunts and uncles. They never yelled. They never fought. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's bananas. She needed all the help she could get. So even I have this memory of, I loved Campbell's chicken noodle soup from a can and Lipton's chicken noodle from like a little packet.
Mm-hmm.
And one time she fed me Campbell's soup from a packet and I flipped out and would not eat it. And my dad came home from work in the middle of the day to like yell at me and be like, your grandmother does so much for us. In hindsight, I'm like, okay, so the picky eating things that we see en masse in kids right now, I saw in myself in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
That like, no, this brand has to be in this form and that brand has to be in that form and we can't cross the wires or whatever. Like I was experiencing that in the 80s. My dad was not having it, but largely I was accommodated. Largely, people put up with my picky eating.
I guess I'm just so curious. Again, and the only reason I'm belaboring this point is because I feel like it's important to me to know how things are different for other generations.
Well,
and different situations.
Totally. I mentioned this to you before. I firmly believe that my generation and on got an amount of TV that has changed our brains as a species, at least in this country.
Yeah.
And in countries
for sure.
like this. And I've heard a lot of talk about, it was slower moving in the 80s and it was quieter and stuff. And I have revisited plenty of older things. I like showing my daughter like Scooby-Doo and that kind of stuff. And it's not as slow as people are making it out. It's way more violent than anything being created for kids today. But the sheer amount, I remember hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of TV. We had VCRs. So I could tape something off TV and watch it again and again and again and again. And I think that changed our dopamine systems.
Yes, but okay, so wait, I just want to stop you here because again, we use broad things like millennial, Gen X, boomers. We use these broad things. And I have a friend, for example, so I'm 57, she's 47, and she is technically Gen X and she clings to this like a lifeboat. I don't know why. She thinks it's cooler, I guess. But she'll say something and I'm like, she's like, well, you remember that show in the 90s? And I was like, I want to remind you that I was of legal drinking age when you were 11. We did not have the same childhood. So my childhood, the cartoons in my childhood were the 70s, which were slower. And I think what's just really important, and I'm being a stickler about this, is because things have changed so rapidly that we're not paying attention. So I want to go back because like your grandmother in the 50s, now convenience food would have been very expensive. So I'm not doubting that she had that. But I had a wildly different experience. Everything was from scratch in my family because it was too expensive. You didn't buy, there were disposable diapers in the 70s. And my mother's like, who was paying for that nonsense? Like, no, I have cloth diapers. And convenience foods were never allowed in I knew they were in the market, but my mother was like, no, like we don't pay for
foods
stuff
is
like
a broad category. We didn't have snacky snacks. I'll say that.
Okay.
What I think of as convenience food is like a can of Campbell's soup was never that expensive. But that to me is a convenience food.
But it would be more expensive for most people than roasting a whole chicken, as is still today. Like getting a whole chicken, boiling, making chicken soup.
She would add water to it. She'd add other stuff, but the base was the Campbell's tomato soup. Yeah. And she did. She roasted all of her own meats from scratch, and she made all her own pie crust from scratch. I remember when pie crust came out as like pre-made in the freezers, and my mom always wanted to do that when we would bake together, and I was like, they're gross. I don't want to. It's disgusting. I want to make pie dough from scratch. And my mom was always so annoyed by it because she wanted to do the convenience things. But I didn't live with my mom, so the way that she presented food was not a big part of my life. Right. My dad was like banquet pot pies. Schwann's. Do you remember Schwann's?
Oh yeah.
The freezer company. Those frozen pizzas absolutely built this body of mine.
Yeah.
And we ate in front of the TV.
So that was the 80s though, because I think you had more
that was the 80s.
options because we didn't have those options.
Yes. So this would be like 85, 86, 87, that my dad had me before he remarried. My stepmom did stuff. That was a whole different situation. But he and I would eat in front of the TV every single night of my early childhood with convenience foods. And that was
Yeah, he
it.
was probably putting plastics in the microwave when they first came out. Nobody knew. I
Yeah,
can't even
totally.
imagine early microwaves weren't frying our fucking brains.
Yeah, and I love my dad. Like, I absolutely adore my father, and he did the best that he could. He was
Yeah.
getting his master's and, raising me on his own and whatever, in dire economic straits.
But this really circles back to my opening, Erica, because here's the thing is like we all did our best, right? And I have verbal proof on this podcast that I have been pro tech. And now I'm like, get it fucking out of your house. I had the first generation iPad for my son, and I literally said these words to my mom: look at him. He'll sit for hours. This is great. We don't know till we know, right? And so like these things, like your dad, I don't think your dad was doing anything. I don't even think he was copping out. This was the thing you did. In fact, I probably would have looked at you and been like, man, you guys, you live high on the hog. My mother didn't allow that, but only because she was like a conspiracy theory early on. She was like, sugar's trying to kill us. The government's watching us through the TV. So
now they're watching us through other things.
You know what I mean? And so like, I think it's what we have to look at now. And this is what I'm trying to tell, like my client work and my larger audience. It's not our fault that we got here. It's not our fault that we're an instant gratification culture. It's not our fault that all of our dopamine receptors are screwed up. We've screwed them up. It is our responsibility, just like when we do our personal work. It is not your fault what happened to you. You are responsible for your healing. And this is how it happens with food and turning this boat around for our families. So let's go back to the USDA. Like and your professor.
Yeah. So my professor told us that he was so excited, he and his peers, when they heard that the USDA was going to be turning out some guidelines, because things really were, I know that we got off track there, but things had been progressing in a negative way nutritionally. I know you had a certain experience in the 70s. My family didn't have that experience in the 70s, right? They were moving towards unhealthier foods.
Right. We did have TV dinners, and I see what you're saying. Yeah,
they were so these nutritionists were like, yes, the USDA is going to help Americans. And what they did then led to what you keep referencing in the 80s. And he said, the second it came out, our excitement turned into despair, because we realized that lobbying interests from the sugar industries and the cereal industries, your General Mills, that kind of stuff, had bought and paid for these recommendations. They're absolutely not what any solid nutritionist would ever in their lives recommend to a human, but it's what our government told all of America to do. And that's when the fat phobia started, and people got fatter as a consequence.
And this is when registered dietitians suddenly came on the scene as being necessary, not just to help like nursing home feedings and school feedings, but a personal. You could hire a registered dietitian whose governing board is General Mills, PepsiCo, McDonald's, Frito-Lay. And so what do you think their reigning curriculum is?
Oh, I know what it is, because I went to school with them. Yeah. I watched it. I was like, oh my goodness.
All foods in moderation, including highly engineered foods meant to trick your taste buds and hijack your brain.
I had a couple really rad nutrition professors. So like I had one nutrition professor who raised her own goats so she could milk them and to make kefir, and grew her own flaxseed, because when you take seeds like chia or flax and grind them and combine them with a probiotic, it can do some vitamin. It can make vitamins in your body, basically in your gut. It can make vitamin K and some other things. But she was like, but I've raised my goats and I make my own kefir and I grow my own grains and I mill them myself. And she was amazing. I loved her. But most of my professors were pretty straightforward. Like, we just have to follow these guidelines, and we know that it's not really correct, but it's what we have to say.
Yep.
And now I have a 6-year-old who has a nutritionist, and in some ways the things that she tells me give me like permission to let myself off the hook for some things. And in some ways I'm like, this is terrible advice. I know it is. Now, one of the things is, because Daffodil is so pathologically picky, I did need to chill out about a bunch of stuff, or else we were never going to make any headway. Yep. This nutritionist said, I don't, as long as she's eating, because because her growth chart was so bad. She was like, as long as she's eating, I don't care. I have one client who has to put mini chocolate chips on everything he eats, including spaghetti, but he'll eat it. So I don't care.
Well, let's get back to Daph, because Daph, I love in one of our conversations, and I said this on a podcast recently, and this is Erica, your daughter is an alphabet soup of diagnosis. Yes. And so I don't want to begin this conversation without some caveats, because
that's fair.
Because I think most of you listening to this are dealing with standard picky eating. You are not dealing with pathological picky eating, and we're going to separate that out.
Yes,
okay?
we'll separate that out. Yes.
But first I want to talk, can we talk about the nefariousness of like how this snacking culture became targeted?
Well, and I posted that Zoe Nutrition episode on flavor. Like, this has been studied over and over and over again. When we give ourselves the highly palatable foods that are high in salt, high in sugar, and high in starch, because starches turn into sugar, but basically they are two different things. The starchiness gives a mouthfeel, the fat gives a mouthfeel, and the salt combined with sugar amps up the flavor. Anybody who does baking knows, like, your chocolate brownies have to have a fair amount of salt in them to get all those chocolate notes. Like, the salt brings out all these flavors. And it's been studied by researchers who care about health, and it's been studied by marketers who want to sell a lot of product. And those people have the money. So the well-meaning researchers are doing what they can, but the marketers they can do much more. And it has been studying flavor palettes to be able to, I mean, they're closer to drugs than they are to...
You guys, it's literally Google the bliss point. There's food scientists that are literally looking for the bliss point, which is Lay's marketing campaign. You can't just have one. And I'm telling you right now, like I did the last episode on like my discoveries, because I'm changing my nutrition for hiking in the winter. Fat and carbohydrates is the magical combination that lights up your brain like cocaine. And that is anything delicious you can think of. It is ice cream, chips, French fries, pizza, mac and cheese. What do kids gravitate? What is on every kid's fucking menu? Yes. These foods, because...
But it could also be like a roast beef. That's fat and salt with mashed potatoes. Like, that is simple. And it can light up your receptors. The way that they have stripped down those components for snack foods is space age. It is designed to create a drug situation in our brains that changes our behavior. And it works. It really works. It's why whenever a parent is browbeating themselves about what they've done nutritionally with their kids, I'm like, yeah, that's fair. It is fair to look at what we have done to create a situation that we are in, as long as we give ourselves a ton of grace, because the cult of individualism in this country has been going on for centuries. And it says, you are your own problem. We're over here spending billions of dollars
to trick you,
creating the situation that you are in, but it's your fault as an individual for falling for it.
Yeah.
It's true in a lot of areas.
And it's the myth of moderation, which is what, like, I started to notice this. It was probably like 4 years ago when they started the nonsense with like, give your kid a piece of candy with every meal so Halloween is neutral, and that whole nonsense. And I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, it was brand new to me. I was like, what is happening? Like, well, and then I would kind of kick back in comments, and I was whenever I hear a script on social media, this is coming from somewhere. And all of a sudden, dietitians were coming out of the woodwork and like talking about food deserts. I was like, I knew about food deserts when I was a social worker in the 90s. Nobody has talked about food deserts. So when did food deserts enter the chat? Because this is coming from somewhere. And then it was like, all foods in moderation, no foods are good or bad, all this whole rhetoric. But it was the same words by every person. And I was like, this is a script. This is a script, and it's coming from somewhere. So I went down that rabbit hole. And of course, now we found out that some dietitians were being paid for their social media posts. And so the problem is that, like, with most parents, they think one of the reasons when we're dealing with picky eating, I am so carte blanche, just stop, is because there is no moderating. A small brain cannot handle little bits of this if they already have an issue. So like the idea of moderation first you got to get it out, and then maybe there may be some moderation that you can have back in. Dude, it's taken me 35 fucking years to learn moderation. Like, I got to a place of moderation, but I had to clear the shit out, you know? And
Yeah.
so I just feel like that there's so many parents that feel like they're hearing from Instagram influencers, I should moderate. My kid can have a little, what about school? He's going to have access to all this stuff anyway. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if you can clear it out of your home, right? And then let your kid go ham at the birthday party. I don't care. And chances are their palate's going to change, right? And so the browbeating is, again, it's not your fault. And I don't mean to be cold-hearted when I say just get rid of it. I know that's, simple, but not easy. Right. But it is, the faster you can, like, it. I've given up sugar, you guys. It is a detox. Like, you cannot convince me. And the people say, I couldn't give up sugar. Yeah, that sounds an awful lot like I can't give up alcohol. I can't give up cocaine. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, and I really have been stressing for 20 years, and I will keep saying it, I am not a sugar-free person. But I will say it's a drug addiction. It's a white
because you had
drug.
access, because you had a lot of access.
Oh
when
my
you were
goodness,
a kid,
I had
right?
horrible access. I had completely unfettered access. If I had money, I could go up to the corner store and buy whatever candy I wanted. I could eat sugar from morning till night. My dad never restricted me on it. And now it's hard. Yeah, totally. And now, like, my thing right now is no sour gummies. And it's a dopamine issue. I am 100% certain it is a dopamine issue. Oh,
and you got the sour, my mouth's salivating just because you said sour gummies, right? So
like, literally, like, I am like a dry drunk in a grocery store. I'll look at them, my whole body, and I'm like, I know, honey, I know you want it. And I love internal family systems. So I do talk to myself,
yep,
either in my head or out loud. Like, I know you want that, baby. I know you want it so bad. I understand that you want that. It makes sense to me that you want it. It was researched and designed, and there were billions of dollars behind putting that out there and getting you hooked on it. I'm so sorry it hurts. I'm so sorry it's so hard. I got myself some key lime cookies at Trader Joe's because I was like, look, you've been doing a really good job. I know you want something sour. We're going to get that cookie. Because it's not the drug that I am addicted to. It's like,
isn't that funny?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's sad. And so with my kid, I have, because of listening to Jamie Glowacki's podcast all these years, I have really worked on my stress tolerance and emotional resilience when it comes to my kids' distress. Mm-hmm. And so I'll give her one nerd gummy cluster, just one. And she's like, why can't I just have the one? And I'm like, yeah, because you said you wanted one. You did the other things that you said you were going to do, whatever. She ate a nutritious meal. But you could just get the one. And she's like, why not more? And I was like, oh, because we're teaching you how to set boundaries around food. But you have to parent the child you have. And if you don't have a child who can have a reasonable conversation with you about that kind of stuff, then I think it's better to just do none. I think it's helpful for her because she really can moderate, and she doesn't do the snacky things because with her things early on, I was like, oh, she needs to be hungry for her meals. And if she's doing Goldfish and whatever empty calorie nonsense out there, then she's not going to be ready for her meals. And so I got it out when she was little. So my situation is different.
Well, also too, like you bring up a good point, which is like, I don't think goldfish are killing anybody. Goldfish are taking up a lot of space in a belly, a very small belly. And your child's stomach is as big as their closed fist. So
satiety also starts in your mouth. Right. The number of times you chew on a piece of food can have a big effect on how fast you feel full.
Sure.
And so if kids have been mindlessly snacking on goldfish, their bite ratio has signaled to their brain that they've had plenty of food.
Yes.
So
I love what you said about parent the kid you have. And so here's the thing, you guys, and we're going to talk about broad strokes, dealing with picky eating, dealing with more extreme picky eating with Erica's daughter. But we also want to just kind of lay out some things here. So I totally lost my train of thought. What were we talking about? Gummies. Oh, the kid you have. So the biggest thing here is that, like, some kids are, there's a whole theory by Gretchen Rubin about abstainers versus moderators. And some people naturally, and we all know them. My aunt can have a glass of wine on Christmas, and that is all she drinks. It's not an issue for her. She doesn't consciously not drink. She likes a little buzz once in a great while, and that's fine. My other members of my family, that's a rabbit hole. They have to monitor. I have friends who have to take care not to drink on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and have a whole game around it, right? There are people who do better with none over people who moderate. And natural moderators tend to be natural moderators. They're calm. They're more logical. Pascal is a natural moderator. I am not. Now, whether that was caused by trauma, I don't know. Like it's at 57, I don't even care anymore. I don't care how I destroyed my own reward pathways, how trauma did. It's what it is today.
Yeah.
And I think kids are born that way too. And so a good thing is like, if you haven't even started picky eating or any of this shit, don't bring it into your house and see how your kid reacts. We have enough fucking holidays and special occasions that like, it used to be Easter and Christmas when I was growing up, and Thanksgiving. And now there's all the Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, all these things, people bring shit food into their house. But then also the amount of birthday parties, the amount of people eating out, right? And that's also mouthfeel and sodium and fat and like all these things. So now what you see is you see your kid go like ham at a birthday party. So I'll give you an example. Pascal's a natural moderator. I never brought it into my house. When we would go out, he would ask for the biggest piece of cake, the corner piece with all the frosting. He would take 2 bites. I could see he was in pain. He was like, I want to be cool. I want to eat this cake. He would always end up playing and leaving the cake. So clearly a moderator. If your kid won't leave the cake and is eating and eating and eating, you probably don't have a moderator. And so what's confusing the conversation, I feel like, is so much of social media influencers are saying that's because you're restricting at home. That's the narrative right now, Erica. So if your kid goes ham at the birthday party, it's because you're restricting them at home. When real food became restrictive, I don't know. So that's now confusing people, right? And so I feel like that is what I deal with the most, is people who get confused because they're like, yeah, I tried. Like my kid was fine, ate everything at home, went ham. And I listened to an influencer and I was like, oh, I should probably start giving him a little candy, every night. And now I have a kid who will only eat chocolate chips. And so like, that's a self-made picky eater. And I don't think it's your fault. I just think we're getting conflicting information, what I mean?
And that trend of social media advice.
Guys, by the way, Erica's not on social media, so I have to inform her what's going on in the world of Instagram.
It's true. Yes. I'm not on private social media. I am on Reddit, but Reddit is different. Easier to cultivate, and it's a very different situation.
Yeah.
That advice that people are giving on social media is the cult of individualism. Mm-hmm. Your kid is binge eating trash food at birthday parties because you are not introducing it at home, is the cult of individualism.
That's interesting. And perspective. Yeah.
Horrible. That's horrible, because they're not saying like, oh yeah, like the highly palatable foods that have been engineered in factories to make you crave and want more and more and more. Yeah. Some people aren't going to be able to moderate that.
Yeah. Like, and I also think though that some kids like are not going to, even a decent cake, like it's okay. It's a celebration. Go ham. Like I think when I go ballistic when I hear Halloween candy is neutral, I was like, you're knocking on free fucking doors for candy. How is that neutral? That is the best night of the year.
And when I listened to that episode, when you were talking about that,
you're probably so disconnected.
Also, why can't kids have special, like, why does everything have to be neutral? That's horrible.
And it doesn't make, why do we have Thanksgiving? Because it was the harvest. Right. We had feast or famines naturally built in. And I live in New England. Girl, I'm going to be skinny by March if I go local and seasonal, because that, like, we're out of story. We're already done with fruits and vegetables. We're done. Like, if you're eating local and seasonal, you're down to meat and potatoes right now. Right. So, yeah, and I think that it's okay for the kids. It's just like my advice for Halloween: make a fatty meat before they go. Like if Thanksgiving, don't stress about the fucking white dinner roll. Let them eat it. Just eat at home. Like people get all stressed out because their kids only want the white dinner roll at the Thanksgiving Day table, and I'm like,
well, one thing that has helped me and a lot of people I know. So I've got the alphabet soup kid, but most of my friends don't. And what has really been vital to them is when I say, Jamie Glowacki recommends feeding your kids at, like, the littles at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And like, see if you're getting some better experiences. And so with my role at the Montessori school, I have been, putting little bits in the newsletter and stuff that goes out to the parents. And I keep getting emails back from them. My kid's coming home positive, exclusively grateful. Like,
Awesome.
I wanted to email and give my gratitude that my kid is coming home full. So they're still sitting at the table with their parents at night. Yep. And eating a little bit or whatever. And I was like, this is my goal. My goal is for your kids' 3 meals that they get at this school to provide all of the fat, protein, fiber, and micronutrients that they need in a day, so that when they get to home to you, their blood sugar is regulated, and they can either sit at the dinner table and nibble on whatever they want. Maybe this is a great opportunity to introduce a new food, because they're not going to have that threat response that they have. Right. If their blood sugar is awry, or maybe you can just focus on connecting in other ways and then have dinner together when the kids have gone to bed. And so that's when I got into the position, I said.
So they had 3 meals?
Well, they have snack.
Okay.
They have morning snack, and that is, for me, throwaway foods. It's like dry Cheerios and kale chips and dry Cheerios, kale chips, and raisins or craisins or something. Okay. It's really empty calories, because I want them hungry for lunch. Mm-hmm. So, and I assume they've eaten like breakfast at home, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, it's like shelf stable. It's easy for the staff to put out, and it's not going to fill them up. So they have that in the morning, and then they have lunch around noon. And that I go real carb heavy on. Mm-hmm. It's always got fat and protein and vegetables, but it's like lots of rice, lots of pasta, biscuits and gravy. Wednesdays is breakfast for lunch day. So I'll either do pancakes, biscuits and gravy, waffles. Or sometimes I do like fried tofu bowls with rice and mango and roasted broccoli, that kind of stuff. Every Monday is a pasta day. What the kids really need is consistency and predictability. Mm-hmm. They really thrive on that. Then the afternoon snack, it always is like a sweeter sort of thing, mm-hmm. but packed with fat and protein. So their favorite one is every Friday they get an almond olive oil cake that's got yogurt in it. So it's whole fat Greek yogurt, a ton of olive oil, ton of eggs, almond flour. It's nice and tall and sexy cakes, but it's still dense. And I serve it with lemon curd that I make with honey and coconut oil and some kind of fruit.
You're pissing off everybody who wants to be part of your school now. Like, everybody listening is like, what the fuck is my kid eating at school?
The kids are like, I got a picture on Slack of a kid using orange rind to scoop more lemon curd in while also holding her hand up for seconds of the lemon curd, and her mouth was like a chipmunk. The staff loves it. The parents are beside themselves with gratitude. They're emailing me regularly, like, what I am getting, the kid I'm getting home at the end of the day is a different kid than used to come home. So
important. And I would say more than anything, and what I love about this menu is it's not so esoteric, right? Like, morning snack is kind of crappy in my opinion, but it's fine. And
that's the point. It's a vehicle.
Yeah, and it's less. I think probably the most beneficial in there is that later snack, and making it super protein heavy, fat heavy, and like yum. And that is the time when kids are the most hungry. And so that is serving them so well. And so whatever you guys can do, obviously, I know Erica's school is like fucking fabulous and y'all don't have that. I know, because I work with a lot of people. But even if you're going to pick up your kid early, or even if you can pack an extra bento box of stuff for that snack instead of what's being served, or in addition to what's being served, so that your kid gets that extra nutrition. But I want to circle back, Erica, because I remember when you got the job, you couldn't quite believe this because you're such a foodie and have such culinary skills. let's talk just a little bit more about how blown away you are that the kids actually need, they want the same things, right? Because like you
Yes.
wanted to like go blow the walls off with your like culinary skills, and you're like, oh, I need to do the
Yeah.
same things.
A little bit I did. I think one of the reasons I was thinking about it so much is because you have been doing these series of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I came in off the heels of a French chef, and he wanted to do something different every single day. And he wanted to do, your like coq au vin kind of situation where it's like saucy, or your cassoulet where everything's like in there.
Yep.
And I thought, these kids don't want that. They want to see each individual component. I also researched Montessori, right? So in the Montessori method, they're like, we want the kids to be able to have a sensory experience with each food type that they have. So as much as can be separate as possible is
deconstructed.
Better. It also enhances their autonomy. So if a kid can say, so they put at the school, they put everything on the plate for the kid, and with a very sturdy, casual, like, yep, you don't have to eat it if you don't want to, but it is going to go on your plate. And then they walk away. So I have too much skin in the game with my kid. And I'm like, do you like it? Do you like it?
Yeah.
So they're just like, they have no skin in the game. They didn't make this food, which goes back to the village, which is a tangent. But so the kids are exposed to all of the items. They can eat what they want or not. And that is an autonomy thing. And we talk about with the littles, everything is done for them. Every decision is decided for them, and they have very little autonomy. And when you set down these food items, you're like, it's all you, honey, whatever you want. That's an autonomy opportunity that they get 3 times a day at school. So they get the sensory component, and they get the sensory component, and they get the autonomy component. And so what I had realized that I had to make it like that. I was like, okay, so I'm going to try all these different things. And one day a kid said to me when I was dropping off the food, I knew it was red pasta day. And it was just very stoic. And I was like, oh yeah. Does that feel good to you that you can know what's coming? He goes, yeah, it really does. I mean, he just was
he was whole body, like, please give me
whole
consistency.
Yeah. And that's when it clicked for me. Like, so what my goal is to have a 4-week rotating menu together. And some of that is already in play. So when I got in, it was like one Monday is pesto. The next week is the red lentil marinara sauce. The next week is pesto. The next week is the marinara. And they feel so comfortable with that. And I was like, okay, I'm never going to touch the pasta Mondays or the sun butter sandwich Fridays. So I get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to zhuzh some things up. But I want to get to a place where, like, week 1 of the month on Tuesdays, I do the tofu bowl. The second weekend of the month on Tuesday, I do the burritos. The third and the fourth. And then the next month, that menu comes back. And parents could do this. Parents really could do this. And
well,
kids
again,
would know.
I'm highlighting it because I feel like what's fucking up dinner so bad is people thinking they need this wide variety and to constantly switch it up. And I mean, even, I talked about doing themes on Instagram, and the amount of people who are like, that is the most boring thing I've ever heard. And I was like, having a pasta Monday or Wednesday, pasta that can be made in all the shapes, all the sauces, all the proteins with it. That's boring. Like but kids need that. So we're fucking it up with the kids because that's what they love to know. I loved it. We knew Wednesday was Prince Spaghetti Day. That was the marketing campaign for Prince. And my mom stayed home from work that day. She had a half day. So she made her big sauce. And so like I love knowing that.
Well, that's us projecting our adult desires onto our children. And it's why I say, hey, look, I made that plate with like steak au poivre with a really beautiful salad of various chicories and pomegranate and pear and blue cheese. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. Roasted purple cauliflower, mashed purple potatoes. It was sensational. My kid ate a burger.
Right.
I get my ground beef from the farmer's market. I take it out and I weigh it I researched McDonald's. What does McDonald's do? So I weigh out 1.5 ounce balls. I press them into patties. I put patty paper in between them and I freeze them.
Yep.
Because right from the freezer, it's less than 2 ounces. It goes from the freezer into a frying pan.
Yep.
for like a minute. I turn it over. I put American cheese on it which is just unripened cheddar. And people need to chill out about American cheese.
I think
I
people
get
need
it
to
from,
chill out about everything. Like this is
yeah,
what I'm saying though. Like you don't even have to defend farmers market beef, weighed out. Like
yeah,
literally,
totally.
a
Yes,
burger
that's
is
fair.
good.
Yes.
Like a
Yes.
burger's
Yeah.
good.
And I make it myself. So we haven't gone out, we haven't spent money in a
Right.
restaurant, whatever, and it's not too big for her.
Right.
So I made our beautiful dinner that was what I felt like doing on a day that I had time to do it. And then I made her burger that took me 5 minutes to put together. And I
Right.
served it with her raw crunchy veggies that she likes and some pickles and some barbecue Lay's chips because she loves chips. And they are a vehicle to help her get her burger down and her
Yeah.
veggies. And so it was great. And she ate earlier. So she was nice and regulated for the whole evening. And Eric and I ate our big bonanza dinner when we felt like it.
Yeah.
So I just think like if parents are like, oh, that's boring, I'm like, okay, great. And for the parents, I'm not going to make a whole separate dinner. I'm like, again, I did a Sunday prep day weeks ago. I can do 2 pounds of burger at one time, and I have burgers for 2 weeks at least in the freezer. And it's just like the burger, a bun, the veggies are pre-chopped.
Well, yeah. So
and
there's
it's
a couple of things there. So I'm not making a separate meal. I am such a huge proponent of a default meal for your toddler for at least 0 to 6, right? Where they need something they love that is nutritious and you approve of, that is waiting in the wings, the prepared patties, right? That takes 2 minutes. Like I always say, Pascal loved grilled chicken, peas and carrots, and mashed potatoes. Those were always in my fridge. If I decided to go hog wild on a new recipe and he was like, there's your default meal. So that's key, because I feel like parents don't have, the default meal becomes the Pop-Tarts or the Halloween candy or a smoothie, which is really not great for most kids because it's like sugar. And so I feel like having that default meal, and like, honestly, we're going to get into her ARFID, but from what I know, like already that's amazing fucking food for a kid with ARFID. Like that is,
yeah.
When we talk about picky eaters, like, and ARFID is the most extreme version of picky eating. That's amazing. So
Yeah.
she's fully nourished. I mean, geez, I always think, if you can get an ounce and a half of burger in a kid, you're done.
Well, and it's
everything else
we're not using her conditions as an excuse.
Right.
So, I
There
mean,
you go.
we work hard on it. One thing that's nice, and I don't do this every single night, but I'll make her that burger or whatever, and she can eat it standing up at the counter while I make our dinner. And she'll like chop my broccoli. So we're connecting, because that's what a lot of people are like, well, I want my kid to have a good relationship with food, which I hear your complaint on that. Like, you can't have a relationship with an inanimate object, but I know what they mean when they say it. And I feel the same way. I don't want my kid to experience any more anxiety than she's already going to feel because of her conditions.
Right.
And I don't want her to, I just don't want her to feel stressed around food all the time. And that's what was happening. And her condition made it worse. But I think it's what a lot of parents are experiencing, right? They're like, 2 more bites, 3 more bites. You're not eating this. You're not trying that, whatever. And then they go to the, And I definitely, I saw it. My stepmom did this with my siblings, because I have this set of half siblings who are much younger than me. And she would fight all through dinner. They wouldn't eat, and then she would give them cereal later. And I swore, and of all the things I swore I wouldn't do and have happened, I do not do that. Oh, fuck no. Absolutely not. No way. You don't get to ignore your healthy foods and then eat crap later. Right. You can have healthy food if and I get like, okay,
you don't have to eat your healthy food now. But
right. But the next time you eat will be healthy food. If you've eaten all of your healthy food and you want some Oreos, great. That's 180 more calories. I love that for you.
And when I work with picky eaters, I actually even stay away from the word healthy, because I feel like that gets so misconstrued. And there are almond moms who think they're healthy. There are, by the way, almond moms, if you don't know that term, it's the moms who would like count your almonds, like to make sure you didn't overeat. So that's where it comes from. It's like, it's not crunchy. It's diet culture.
It's diet
culture. Diet culture mom who like weighed you and shit like that. So, the term healthy, like when people tell me they eat healthy, 90% of the time I'm like, oh no, you're eating skinny. You're trying to eat skinny. That's not healthy. Yeah. You're just fat obsessed. Like you're deficient in fat. But anyway, yeah, so the let's talk about her, because one of the things I love that you've done in the community is we talk a lot about picky eating and like helping kids, and you tried all the things. So what does ARFID stand for?
Avoidant resistant food intake disorder.
Okay.
And she has been diagnosed with moderate autism and ADHD.
Okay.
And when she was 10 months old, I was doing baby-led weaning, and it was going perfect. I made her baby portions of whatever I was cooking, like I gave her salt, but other than like I would little scoop of mashed potatoes and my braised pork and soft cooked veggies, and she was living her best food life until one day when she was almost 11 months old. She was eating a spoonful of like yogurt and oatmeal and fruit puree and learning how to drink from an open cup, and she took in some water and started choking. Yogurt oatmeal came out of her nose. She took a minute or so to catch a breath. She had this look in her eyes that was like, I think I'm going to die right now. I think I might die right now. And literally the next meal was a struggle. And then the next meal, and then the next meal, until a month and a half, 2 months later, I went into her pediatrician's office and I gave the list. I said, these are the things I'm doing to try to create a supportive eating environment. No screens, this many things on the plate. I mean, it was like a hyper vigilant list of a lot of things. And the pediatrician looked at me and was like, whoa, this is a lot of factors that you're trying to account for to help her eat. Like, this is a big deal. So she sent us to a feeding speech and language pathologist who specializes in feeding. And she in a minute was like, oh, she's got oral phase dysphagia. I can see that she has weak mandible strength, poor lateral movement of the tongue, and a shallow gag reflex. So we did Zoom. And then they were like, here's all the things we're going to do. And then the pandemic hit, and they were like, actually, we're going to do this all over Zoom with your 1-year-old. So basically it was just like me and the SLP chatting about what was working, what wasn't. And things got better. And then around 3, they started not getting better. And a lot of it had to do with like the roles and responsibilities that we hear, right? Like, it's your responsibility to provide nutritious food, and it's their responsibility to eat it. And if they don't, then that's fine. They're not hungry or something, which is one of the, like, that's good advice for most parents. Most parents
This
should.
is good advice, right?
Yes, this is great advice.
And one of the reasons, you guys, I want to stop. One of the reasons I wanted to have Erica on and talk about ARFID and her child and her diagnosis as well is because I think one of the scariest things about picky eating, not scary, but one of the dangers when we're addressing picky eating is that it's wildly confusing if you're dealing with standard picky eating, which all kids go through, or, and it can get off the track because of the hyperpalatable foods, or are we talking about something more extreme? Because like I said, most toddlers have non-eating days, and that gets parents into a heap of trouble because they go, oh, you're not eating, forget it, eat anything. And then you're down that slippery slope.
Right.
But I think for most people, it really is, you literally can do the starve them out. And that's like, I say that kind of jokingly because I think that's a bad way to put it. But if you wait till they're hungry and don't give them snacky snacks, they will eat. They will eat the food you put in front of them.
Yes,
and no parent is willing to do that because they're like, no, my kid will starve. And I'm telling you right now, your kid will not starve unless they have ARFID. And we're going to talk about specific things you should look for. But it's not that common. So...
Well, and this is where I love internal family systems, where I would say to any parent, like, you have an evolutionary drive to not let your child starve. You have 100 million years of Homo sapien and our ancestors, like, truly. And that is something that, like, if parents can't give themselves that kind of grace while they're letting their kids starve it out, they're less likely to go through that process. And it really should happen. Right. Like the picky eating thing has always been a toddler defense mechanism against, like, this time where they'll put anything in their mouths and could die. Right. So it is normal, and we do need to let them go through it. And I was getting a ton of praise in how I was doing that. We just didn't know about her conditions yet.
Right.
Which you shouldn't be diagnosing your 3-year-old with autism. Like, it's not helpful,
Right.
because most 3-year-olds seem kind of autistic, not in the.
3-year-olds are drunk sailors. Like, I wish we would just, I mean, I know it. And if you're dealing with something profound and no eye contact, obviously
Yes, exactly. That's where I was just like backing up,
but
moderate
the amount of people who come to me asking, I think I'm looking at a diagnosis. I'm going to have her evaluated. And it's like, or she's 3, and maybe we work through some of the parenting stuff and it's a large amount of times it's not. Like, we're jumping on the neurodivergent thing because it explains inconvenient behavior. It explains spicy kids. Toddlers are fucking spicy. They're ridiculous. They're chaotic.
Yeah, it's true. And if you have a family history, it might be, more relevant or something like that. But I mean, I almost missed it because between the pandemic and not having a lot of like interaction with other kids, and the parenting techniques that I was using, like literally when she was diagnosed, one of the people said, "You have just been using such supportive parenting techniques that you didn't notice." And that's fine. Like, you're a great parent, but she definitely has these conditions, and we can treat it, and it's fine. And it's going to be a lot easier because you've been doing all these things. That's why whenever you're like, I know this is for neurotypical kids, I know neurodivergence is different. And I'm like, it is a little bit, but honestly, your parenting advice has helped me support my alphabet soup child in all of these ways. That so when people dismiss you, like, well, you don't get it, because I'm like,
we have to stop wearing diagnoses as an identity and as a label. And I get very distressed, like I said this before we recorded, when people tell me about their kid and the first thing out of their mouth is neurodivergent. Okay, because that's 22 diagnoses under the umbrella, and each one has a wide spectrum. It tells me 0 about your kid. And I had a friend years ago whose kid got diagnosed, one of the first kids in our community who got diagnosed spectrum. And she literally was like, she was so stunned. She was like, don't you dare come at me about gluten in my diet. Don't you dare ask me about my vaccine status. And I'm not going to tell you what my kid has. What I will tell you is that if he likes you, he's going to talk about bugs endlessly, right? And so we can take whatever their manifestation of their neurodivergence is, and we can certainly lead with that if it's going to interrupt a play group and be like, hey, I just want you to know we're struggling with personal space right now, and I will be on it, but feel free, if my eyes are off and my kid's pushing your kid, feel free to jump in. Like, we can help other parents navigate that. But I just feel like neurodivergence has reached a tipping point where it's explaining any inconvenient behavior, and it's become an excuse because we can work hard on this stuff without just being like, oh, they're neurodivergent, they're going to be picky. Because I'm hearing from the adults now who are saying, I wish my mom had worked harder at this. And I'm sorry, it's moms. It's always moms. Totally. I'm sorry.
Well, I do have 2 adult friends who are both, twice exceptional. So they both have ADHD and autism, and they're both like really smart people, and they both struggle. One is diagnosed with ARFID. The other, I have diagnosed them with ARFID. But that person said to, and they're my best friend. They said, I know that you're struggling with Daffodil, and I just want to tell you that on the days when I am struggling to force myself to eat, I think about what it would have been like to have a mom like you, who is not letting her skip because her body. So the choking thing created a threat response around swallowing food.
Sure.
And that's what ARFID is doing to her. So the autism can make it really hard to check in with your internal cues for hunger and satiety. So some autistic kids are really overweight because they don't know how to feel full. Some kids are severely underweight because they don't know how to feel hungry. My kid's like somewhere in the middle.
I also think that the spectrum can also, you can hook on the fear. Like, that's a big fear. So that can help you perseverate on that is the only way that it's going to go down now.
Yeah. My husband one day was like, you have chewed that piece of meat in your mouth 40 times. I counted. I just watched and counted. You've chewed 40 times. It's okay to swallow.
Oh boy.
So she has extreme anxiety around swallowing food. She won't eat anything soft. We worked tirelessly to get her to eat mac and cheese. And this is where, like, I say nutritious meal, and I'm very clear, nutritious is different for every body. And I learned this when I had my restaurant. I had people who couldn't eat tomatoes or peppers because of nightshade allergies. And I had people who have SIBO, and tomatoes and peppers are one of the things in the green column. Like, you can eat this kind of with wild abandon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a healthy food, healthy for some people, unhealthy for other people. So for my kid, I learned mac and cheese is incredibly healthy because it can give her a lot of calories in a few bites, and it's helping to desensitize her from her fear of soft foods. It's a huge win.
Right.
There are parents out there who are like, my kid will only eat mac and cheese. This is a nightmare. And I'm like, that makes sense to me. That's not a healthy food for your kid. My kid eating this is like part of her therapy. It's a huge win. We're very excited that mac and cheese is on the menu.
I think that sentence alone is so freaking important, right? Because you are working on specific things. And I think this is what's happening. It's so weird to be talking about social media with somebody without social media, but this is what's happening online is there's so many people now. ARFID looks like it's common. It looks like it's every kid. So a parent runs into some picky eating. They're already stressed out, working outside the home. Dinner's a clusterfuck. And they go, my kid has that. My kid, right? So this is where it's really getting mucked up because it's too much information. And so you're working on a texture, you're working on a fear, and you're working on getting the most freaking calories you can per bite right now. So that is your version of healthy. Now, and I would, knowing you, it's a good mac and cheese, or maybe with knowing Daff, it's Kraft out of the box. My son, the whole Kraft macaroni story. Do you remember that story?
No, I don't think I did.
Somebody gave him a $25 gift card for Walmart when he was like 7 or 8. And I was like, he kept pressing me. He was like, I can get anything I want. I can get anything I want at Walmart. And I was like, yeah, but he would go in with my mom. So he knew the store. So I said, yeah, like I couldn't figure out why he was so like, and you won't take it back. You won't get mad at me. And I was like, what do you think I plan on buying? And then he goes, so he marches into Walmart with his $25 gift card. He knows exactly where everything is. 10-pack of Kraft macaroni and cheese and a bag of powdered donuts, like the economy size. And he was just like, and I was like, oh, and he was like, you can't look at the ingredients. You can't tell me. I was like, have at it, buddy. You well played.
Have at it. And now you have a 19, 20-year-old who's hunting his own game and
butchering his own
beautiful relationship with food.
Right. So that's, but I think that is, and then like you said, so a kid who will only eat mac and cheese, that is not a healthy food. And I think that I'm going to like plaster that somewhere because that is the difference in biting through the noise, right? That is online and that only you know. And you know what you're working on, you know? And if you're trying to do that scaffolding and your kid will only eat mac and cheese and you've gone to spaghetti with butter. Yeah, spaghetti with butter. That's a good move. You made a move because you're working on a specific. And with ARFID, their body weight gets dangerously low, right?
Yes.
Then that was that was the pivotal linchpin for you, right?
We were measuring by the ounce per year of weight gain.
Wow.
At a time when you're supposed to be, actually one of the things, casually saying my kid has this condition without seeking help is, I feel judgmental thoughts about it. I will say that. I'm not going to.
By the way, I'm going to separate that. We can talk because I'm going to separate this into two.
Okay.
Because we're getting long, but I don't want to stop.
Yes. I feel very strongly about anybody who sincerely believes that that's what their kid has and not aggressively seeking treatment. So I'm not on social media. I also don't Google anything unless a practitioner expressly asks me to, because Google doesn't know my child.
Right.
So,
and neither does ChatGPT. Stop diagnosing your kid on ChatGPT.
Correct. So, we have a general OT, a feeding OT, a psychologist, a gastroenterologist, and a nutritionist. So anything that I'm working on, I'm saying like, this is the environment we're feeding her in. These are the foods that she's eating. These are the techniques that we're using. I am going through all of my strategies with clinicians who have evaluated my child and who have ongoing treatment with my child, so that I know So we can spitball, that kind of stuff. We can get support. And then whenever we need to move to the next stage of treatment, it's not just me like spitballing. It's
winging
us,
it,
it's them saying, you have tried everything. We're going to do this thing next. One of the things was going to the gastroenterologist. She went under anesthesia. She had an upper GI. They took blood. I turned in 2 different fecal samples. And that's when I learned she's not deficient in any nutrients. So her limited diet is absolutely giving her the nutrition she needs. She just needed to eat more. And that's when the gastro was like, we're going to put her on cepraheptidine, which is an appetite stimulant. And it changed so much for us. Just the amount of food she could eat. It helps. He said in all of her years of restricting, she is, her stomach has shrunk. So she feels full before she's had her calorie load that she should have. And so the medicine like relaxes her stomach, helps the food move through faster, and it stimulates her appetite. And so we go see him every 6 months to make sure that he is good with her health and feels good that she's still on it, talk about dosage, whatever. Like she needed a medication to stimulate her appetite in order to eat enough calories in a day. And you're right about the daily thing. Like the nutritionist said, you need to be looking over a week, not in any given day. Like that's really important. And so we got rid of that when she was 1, of this, like how much in a day. But over time, like there were too many years of her not getting enough in every single day. And so that's when they were like, okay, you've done a lot of the, her psychologist said, you have done every cognitive behavioral thing in all of our boxes, all of our trick boxes as OTs, nutritionists, therapists, everybody. Like she needs medical intervention. Yeah. And so I know, a lot of people are myself included. I mean, I haven't had an antibiotic in 20 years, right? Like I don't take stuff. Right. But when they were like, well, that crunchy hippie mom approach is not going to help your daughter like gain weight and eat enough food. Yeah. So she's on the cepraheptidine for appetite stimulation. And then eventually she started an anti-anxiety med because her throat would stop food from going down her throat, know? And so that's why I'm like, it is not a casual thing to say that my child has ARFID. It is a subset of her diagnoses of autism. Autism makes you want everything to be predictable and the same and to not have novelty. And ADHD wants you to only have novelty. And when those 2 conditions combine, it is the perfect storm for like, I'd just rather not eat because I'm bored of the predictable foods. There's too much going on. But I'm very scared of the new foods. So I'm just not going to eat. Yeah. Combined with that, with the choking incident, and then combine that with her autism enjoys a pathological demand avoidance profile, which I've discussed at length with her psychologist. And food is a demand. Yeah. From the universe. The universe demands it. When potty training was happening, she was like, I don't want to go potty. She thought she could just stop eating and drinking because she knows how the body works. She was like, oh, if I don't eat or drink, then I won't have to poop or pee. And I was like, yeah, but then you die. So you do have to go potty. It's just part of life.
Here's the downside.
Life demands it. Yeah. Life demands that you poop and pee and eat and drink. Yeah. And when she was little, I was just like, yeah, that's just a kid thing. But as she's gotten older, I'm like, oh no, that is part of her profile of autism. Life demands that she eats and she wants to buck up against it. Yeah. So there's all of these perfect storms that have to do with her conditions that create an ARFID situation. It's not an excuse to feed her garbage food. It's not an excuse to let her not eat.
Well, I think too, one of the more important things you said is supporting her, providing the environment. And I just keep going back to the image of her eating a hamburger patty on the stool counter bar area, like watching you, helping you cook and chop. Yeah. And it just, it kind of just blew my mind because I had this thought of like, I don't, my whole gripe with the relationship with food is that we love to say it has no moral value. Well, then we can't have a relationship with it because relationships have moral value, right? And so, but that is a stunning image for me. And what it is we want to create a relationship with the people. She's creating a relationship with you, and food and around food. And so what happens in a typical picky eating situation is we get to be shrews. One more bite, one more bite. We're not negotiating. Oh my God, you never eat. You're not, and our relationship with our kid is now contentious, and food is the middleman. And so what you've been doing is in spite of all the alphabet soup, in spite of all these converging diagnoses that could be really daunting, is the environment is 90% of it. And you've given her, the PDA, you know how that affects, you can't demand, like, you must like strew food around the house, like leave breadcrumbs, like, you know what I mean? But you create the environment that is right for her. So now she has like, even, imagine like your throat closing up when you eat. And so, yes, the medicine is helping her, I'm sure, but also I can have a burger. Like that's the bigger message I think we all need is stop. The relationship isn't with the food. It's with you. It's with dinner time. It's with how you're putting the stuff on the plate. And the number one thing with your average picky eater, stop snacking, and you're responsible for what goes on the plate. They're responsible for eating. If they're not hungry, let them get up from the table and go play. If they're hungry later, present this. They just don't get snacky snacks. That's all. Like, it's really not, it's again, simple, not easy, right?
It's
to
simple.
hold through that.
Well, it's not super easy to start. But now that I'm fine with it, like I had the family dinner vision in my head, and maybe someday we will get that. That sounds great. But I've heard you talk about it for years. Parents being like, well, my kid won't sit down and eat with dinner, and we're supposed to have this family dinner, and we're supposed to have this connection and healthy relationship with food. And you're like, you're feeding them 3 hours past their hunger window.
Right.
And that kid, there's a nutritional circadian rhythm as much as there's a sleep one. And so, like, to quit wishing things were different and to just go, okay, my kid's got ADHD. She wants to move all over tarnation while she's eating. It takes her forever to eat because she wants to move all over the place. And instead of me barking at her, I'm like, great, I'm going to get your dinner ready at 4:00 and you can stand up here. Because when she's standing, then she can get down and she can get up, and she can get down and she can get up. And I don't care how long it takes her to eat because I'm doing my thing. And we're together. And with her OTs, we're like, the fact that you're over there like making, something with soy sauce or something with blue cheese and these like strong flavors right next to her is helping her sensory experience because, part of her resistance to foods is the strong sensory experience.
You're doing so great. I mean, I just can't get over she ate a burger and, again, allows blue cheese in the room and
totally.
So I want to give you so much high praise, but I also want to reiterate that even with all these diagnoses, you can expand them. It's not a death sentence, and it's not an excuse to be like, that's it. This is all we can eat.
Well, and I also talk to her a lot about it. Something I've seen on the autism subreddits a lot is people talking about like them getting diagnosed as children and their parents never talking to them about it. Like, yeah, I went to all these appointments and I don't know what they were for. And then later
I found out.
I'm not kidding you.
Holy shit. That seems egregious.
Yeah. And I don't know, again, because I'm not on social media, so I don't super know what people are doing out there. But if their kid has something going on, talking about it is really important, in my opinion. Yeah. And so for me, like Daffodil will say, and I'm getting my movement needs met. So she knows that she has a condition that makes her antsy and hyperactive. And instead of, like pretending that doesn't exist, I'm like, look, you do need to eat. That's a need that your body has. I also understand that you have a need for movement. How can we get both of your needs met? And I love this.
But see, this is the thing I talk about. Yeah. And this is the thing I talk about on every episode, right? Is like when we are working with a kid and whatever their specifics are, we try to think like we can engineer parenting behind the scenes. Like, I'm just going to fix this. No, if your kid's having like big reactions, we make it a family problem. It's not, everything's got to change. And more because of this immediate gratification culture, people are coming to me like, fix my kid. And I'm like, oh my God, your kid's in daycare from 7 to 7. Like, number one, I can't fix your kid. We're never with the kid. But also, like, we got to work on connection time. Like, why are you trying to eat dinner at 8:00? Like you only have limited time with your kid. Like, go there. So we're living our lives expecting the kids to just be okay. And then we also like want them fixed. And so I always say this with emotional, like, what's better? Your conversation should be emotional wisdom. I'm feeling, oh my goodness, I'm feeling dysregulated. I feel it here, so that your little one can say, I'm feeling dysregulated.
Yeah.
I need, do you have movement needs? Do you like when we talk about these things, like, I guess it makes sense that they didn't talk about autism back now, people who are adults now, because that was the times.
There was the time.
We were also smoking in hospitals. So.
My kid's sped teacher pulled me aside one day and said, yeah, Daffodil was having a tough time in the classroom today. And so I came and got her and brought her into the sped room. And she said to Daff, I see you're having a tough time. Do you need to do some throwing? She's got a throwing quarter with like mats and things you can throw at it and stuff. And she said, no, I'm feeling really dysregulated right now, and I don't think that will help me calm down. I think I need something calm, like drawing. And the teacher was like, okay. And they sat down and they drew together for like 10 minutes. And then she went back to the classroom. So the sped teacher, so she comes to me and she was like, first of all, wanted to let you know that happened and it's amazing. And second of all, can you imagine if we had that kind of language when we were her age? What could our lives have been like if we could say at 6 years old, I'm feeling really dysregulated right now. I think what I need is XYZ. Yeah. And then we got it.
Yeah.
Like, you are setting her up for a life of saying, I'm going to check in with my body. Ooh, I'm feeling this thing. What do I need to help myself right now?
Yeah.
And again,
I mean, can you imagine any of us? Shit. Oh my God, my life would have been different.
My life would have been different.
But also, I think what happens, and guys, this isn't like, this is stuff you can do when they're a toddler, but we're not belaboring it with the child, right? So what that will look like is if your 2-year-old's freaking out, we want to validate, be like, wow, you seem dysregulated. Let's go try some movement. Not like, hey, do you want to talk about this? Like, mommy feels dysregulated. Not at this age. Like, as they grow, somewhere around 5 or 6 is when they can really comprehend that. And that's like me and Pascal. Same thing is like, I will explain, like, I've been really vocal. Mine is a thermometer that goes from my pelvis to my throat and it shoots up. And the faster it shoots up, the more it's an older wound. I just learned that. So the faster it shoots up, the faster I have to be quiet, because it's not coming from a present place. It's coming from, I have to explore it for a second, So, but now he can say it too. Like, we had a situation where he got himself dysregulated and he was like, I'd be fine, but I need a minute. But this was after he was not fine. And this is currently. And what was funny is I had to go back the next day and I said, listen, I need you to understand something. I said, you're 19, you're big. I said, that energy you had yesterday, that is scary. I said, I'm not scared because I'm your mom. I know you weren't going to do anything, but if you are with a young woman who is significantly smaller than you, that energy, and he immediately was like, well, what was I doing? I said, no, when somebody tells you their experience of them, you don't get to tell them they're wrong. That was scary. We're going through all this like relationship. Now we're in like relationship 105, I think. Like we're good. And so, and he was like, I said, and what you said was perfect. I wish you had said it earlier, which is, I need a minute. I'm going to go to the gym. I said, that was a beautiful response. And in the future, if you find yourself with that buzzy energy, tell that to your lady and then go to the gym and work it off and come back with a sane viewpoint. And he was like, oh, like, and so like navigating that,
Yeah.
But it's like this language never stops with our kids. And this is so cool because we all expect this emotional wisdom, but first of all, a lot of us don't recognize when we're dysregulated, right? So that's the work, is learning how to model that. But then I don't know how to describe it. It's like it's making the work part of your daily life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how this has happened. That's why at 6, she was able to say this to her sped teacher, because I've been scaffolding this language throughout her life. And it's really important to me that I'm like, ooh, you're starting, like, I see these things happening in your body, or I'll say, ooh, I'm starting to clench my teeth right now. I think I'm feeling dysregulated. Like, that's my sign. Like, I can feel myself clenching my teeth and saying to her, I am feeling really agitated right now. I'm clenching my teeth. My shoulders are up. I need to chill out for a second.
Yep.
And then, like going into repair, like, hey, recently I said, I don't like the way either one of us spoke to each other yesterday morning. And she was like, yeah, I didn't like it either. I was like, I'm sorry about how I acted. She was like, yeah, I'm sorry how I acted too. I was like, let's try to make it better this morning. She was like, yeah, let's do that. It was a very casual conversation.
Done. Easy, right? Instead of like,
yeah, totally digging my heels in or placating and not asking, like, I don't like how I acted. I also don't like how you acted.
right.
Let's,
Right.
let's
The
both
amount of
have
people
some
who cling to that,
responsibility
though,
here.
and it's all on social media, but like, why do I have to apologize? And I'm like, because we're trying to fucking model for your kid. Like,
Yeah,
how's it working out for you to just sit there and blame them and throw a bunch of shame on them? Is that working for you? Like,
well, and are we going to pretend like the way you spoke to your kid when they were being shitty was perfect? I mean,
right.
It probably wasn't. Like, there's probably something you can apologize for. And I learned about this in management a long time ago. Restaurants, it's like, okay, this thing didn't get done. The staff person didn't do it. What did I do as a manager at all that could possibly have facilitated them making this mistake?
Yeah.
And if I lead that way, I'm like, hey, I realize I didn't say that I don't want it done this way, or I realize that I've let you do it this way in the past and haven't said anything,
right.
Whatever. Look for anything I can find that's sincere that I did to facilitate a situation and lead from there if I'm asking them to change something about how they are on the job.
And it's so important with our kids because we do that all the time. It's you. And like, oh no, I got up late. I made the morning rushed. I'm the one who yelled to put your shoes on from the other room and you didn't hear me. Now I'm the one who's upset. Like,
or even recently I got into an argument with my kid about her getting dressed in the morning. And then it clicked with me. I was like, oh, I don't give a shit if she gets dressed. Actually, she can go to school in her pajamas. I don't care in the slightest. Why am I picking this fight? This is wholly a me thing.
Yeah.
Not
I tell parents that all the time, and especially in like preschool or kindergarten, like there's not a teacher in the world who doesn't know that you just gave up that battle today. Like they don't care. And so
So
all right, we got to go.
But
we do have to go. Hours.
I do just want to say though that in talking about things with our kids, I have found a lot of success with not saying things in regards to food.
Yes.
So recently I started putting some chocolate covered almonds in her snack. She hasn't really liked them for a while. They're a food that were on the list and came off, and I just casually put them in there, and the thing was coming back empty, and they don't let the kids throw anything away at school. So I know she's eating them. And then one morning I was looking for backup almonds, and she's like, what are you looking for? And I was like, almonds, you've been eating them. I said something. She was like, oh, I don't like those. And I was like, why did you fucking say something, Erica? Why? So, I calmed down, and then a few days later, I just started putting them in again, and she's eating them again. So sometimes it's like talking about things, sometimes less is more. And I think that we're an over talky parent generation right now. And
over talking, and you're so right about everything, like what goes on the plate, and stop praising them, because praise is a demand too, right? Yes. Praise is like, now you put pressure on the kids. So like literally one of the reasons I like to do in-home picky eatings, and I've had so much success, is because I can model what I want, because parents don't know how to chill the fuck out. Like, I'm like, no, when I say don't talk about food, and they're like, yeah, but I'm just gonna, no, don't talk about food. You put it on the plate. This is what it is. What if they want more pasta? I said, we're not talking about food. Oh, we don't have any more. That's it. Like, stop negotiating. Stop. Like, but
that is a rule in the school too.
Focus on like the relationship. Start like bounce the conversation right away to, oh my God, who'd you sit next to at lunch today? Did anybody play on the playground? What'd you play? Like anything. What's your third favorite dinosaur? Like, just make up some conversation so you're not talking about food.
Yeah, totally. So that's my last little bit of like, there are places where we need to say more, and there are places where we need to say less. And I'm finding the less I do say, and also a little bit of positive encouragement does go a long way with her. If she's focusing on her meal, I will periodically say, I really appreciate how you're focusing on your meal today. Thank you very much. And it's not like a good job, and it's not a high, I'm not going up several octaves, but I am, because there are times that I'm like, I need you to take another bite, keep eating, stay focused. Like we are saying that during some meals. So on a meal where she's staying focused, I counteract all of that other stuff with like, I really appreciate that you're staying focused. Thank you so much. I really love it. She's like, oh yeah, it's really good. I'm like, yes, that's great. And then move along.
Yeah.
So
And also,
yes.
I just want to point out, guys, like when Erica's talking about her daughter, you have to, again, ride this line of this is severe. So when she says, take one more bite and push things along, it's because Daff will take 8 hours to eat a meal.
Yes, it's true. Yes.
Not 30 minutes and you want to move on to the
Correct.
next activity. Right.
Yes. That's exactly it. It truly, she will spend 2 hours eating. And my adult friends with ARFID have said, I sometimes it takes me 2 hours to eat. And that helps me. It helps me chill out. It helps me cultivate empathy. All of this diagnosis and everything for me is about how to cultivate empathy and how to come up with strategies that meet my individual child's needs.
Right.
It's not so that I can just give up and throw my hands in the air. It's so that I can be kinder to her because I empathize with what she's going through. And it's so I can go, okay, all right. So a lot of kids with this condition need these support systems that I can put into place. But it's not an excuse to give up. It's a directive to, unfortunately, try harder. So that's all neurodivergence, and it's not the average kid. The average kid is just being inundated with corporate engineered foods that are designed to make kids want hyper palatable foods and extreme flavors. And the only way to deal with that is by not bringing it into your home. So I appreciate everything that you've said. There's been no point at which I'm like, oh, I can't believe she said that. I'm like, I'm so glad she said that. More people need to be hearing this. And I have a lot of education and work experience to support everything that you have said. So I'm proud that you're doing this.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a beast, but I'm not going to shut up now.
Please don't.
All right, guys, as always, I appreciate you. Put your phone down. Okay, rock on.